In this video, we'll be taking a look at one NFL game happening on January 17, 2026, and providing you with a free team pick and total pick for this game. So 2 picks in total. Welcome back to Cash Out Sports. Let's dive right into it. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe and to click the bell icon to get notified as soon as these videos get released, so that you have more time to plan out your bets as we provide these videos on a daily basis. I can guarantee that you'll have all the important information that you'll need on this one NFL game after fully watching this video. One more thing before we start, if you would like to gain access to our best exclusive sports picks to take your journey to the next level, then check out our Patreon in the link down below, where we offer our best single picks, parlay picks, and much more. Now let's get started. San Francisco 49ers versus Seattle Seahawks. If you watched last week's game between the 49ers and the Eagles, the final score probably did not blow your mind. San Francisco looked a lot like the version of itself we have seen since Brock Purdy stepped back in as the full-time starter, an offense humming right alongside the very best passing units in the league. Even with those 2 interceptions hanging on his stat line, Purdy was ice cold when the leverage was highest, going 6 of 11 on third downs and guiding 13 fourth-quarter points against a defense that still ranks among the league's elite. That is the kind of stuff that sticks with you more than the picks. What makes that output even more impressive is how little they actually had the ball. San Francisco only possessed it for 24 minutes, yet still found ways to move the chains, extend drives in key spots, and stay composed in a tough environment. That is a big part of why people are still willing to trust this offense, even with the mistakes and even with the injuries piling up. Defensively, the Niners did their job, but some of that success sits on Philadelphia's shoulders too. The Eagles' offense has been pretty pedestrian for most of this season, so watching them sputter through the second half with just 6 points and 104 yards in the final 2 quarters felt more like a continuation than a plot twist. Credit is due to the coaching staff and a roster that continues to find answers, but it is fair to question how repeatable that kind of performance really is. That is especially true with what is coming next. Now the focus moves to Seattle, and that is a very different test. The Seahawks come into this divisional round with extended rest, and they get to host their first playoff game on Saturday night in a building that already leans loud. Their defense has been talked about nonstop for a reason. In their Week 18 meeting, they completely smothered San Francisco, holding Purdy and the rest of that offense to just 3 points and 173 total yards. For all the hype around the 49ers attack, that game was a reminder that this matchup is not exactly friendly to them. Seattle left plenty of meat on the bone on offense that day too. They only scored 13 points, so it was hardly an offensive fireworks show, but the way they controlled the game was telling. They ran for 180 yards at 4.6 yards per carry and choked out the clock, owning time of possession at 37-48 compared to just 22-12 for San Francisco. That kind of run-heavy, methodical style does not always look glamorous, but it wears on a defense, and it protects your own. Sam Darnold did not need to be a superhero either. He was just efficient, finishing 20 of 26 for 198 yards, and the game never really felt within reach for the visiting Niners. If you zoom in on the numbers from that Week 18 road win for Seattle, they look even rougher for San Francisco. The Seahawks held the Niners to 173 total yards, only 53 on the ground, forced them into just 9 first downs, and limited them to 2 of 9 on third downs. On the flip side, Seattle put up 361 yards of their own, with 181 through the air, 23 first downs, and a 6 of 13 mark on third down. That is the sort of profile that screams control, both in terms of pace and physicality. Given that Seattle has held opponents to fewer than 17 points in 5 of their last 6 games, it is not unreasonable to think points will be hard to find again for San Francisco. Of course, the Niners are not exactly limping into this one from a performance standpoint. They are coming off a nice road win in Philadelphia where they posted 361 total yards, 286 passing yards, 6.2 yards per play, 20 first downs, and another strong 6 of 11 output on third down. On defense in that matchup, they allowed only 167 passing yards and held the Eagles to 5 of 16 on third down tries. So while the overall health of the roster is a concern, the shape of the team on the field still looks competitive. Before that Week 18 flop in Seattle, San Francisco had actually scored 37 or more points in 3 straight games. That shows they still have a ceiling that can scare people if things click early. These two teams know each other well, and that familiarity sometimes leads to creativity. You can absolutely imagine a gadget play or a surprise look from either sideline just to try and steal a possession or a quick score. From a neutral fan point of view, it sets up as a pretty compelling watch. Seattle has already flashed its recent strength head-to-head with that 13-3 win over the 49ers, and that game is part of an active 7-game winning streak. On offense, they have real, tangible production. Darnold has stacked up 4,048 passing yards, Kenneth Walker has reached 1,027 rushing yards, and Jackson Smith-Njigba has climbed to 1,793 receiving yards. That is not a unit surviving on smoke and mirrors, it is one that can move the ball in different ways. San Francisco can still keep games tight thanks to a steady offense featuring Purdy, Christian McCaffrey, and a defense that can come up with timely stops, but the injury list at important positions is heavy. We just saw Purdy throw 2 interceptions in that 23-19 win at Philadelphia. Now he has to deal with a Seattle defense that has generated 47 sacks and 18 interceptions. That is exactly the combination of pressure and opportunism that can force mistakes from even a good offense, and those mistakes tend to show up in the worst possible moments. San Francisco is also in a tough spot without tight end George Kittle, who went down with an Achilles injury. Across the 6 regular season games he missed, the Niners ranked 26th in rush offensive defense adjusted value over average, which tells you how important he is in the run game beyond just the box score. As if that were not enough, this same Seattle team just beat them 13-3 in Week 18 and rolls into this postseason with what is widely regarded as the best defense in the league. They are rested, they sit at the top of the charts in expected points added per play and defense adjusted value over average, and they allow both the lowest expected points added and the fewest yards per rush. From a matchup perspective, that is a brutal defensive profile for an offense that just lost one of its most important blockers and security blankets. So while this rematch does not have to be a carbon copy of their last meeting, the broad outline could look familiar. San Francisco's big win last Sunday came with a price tag, Kittle's season-ending Achilles tear, and he is as crucial in the blocking schemes as he is as a pass catcher. Stack that on top of a roster that has already been beaten up most of the year, and it becomes harder to imagine them staying sharp across 4 quarters. Add in the reality that San Francisco only gets 6 days to recover and prepare after a very physical wild card battle, and the setup tilts toward Seattle. It is not crazy to picture a scenario where the Seahawks push this toward a blowout, with their defense once again slowing the 49ers and their offense doing just enough to stretch the margin at Lumen Field. As our first pick for this matchup, the Seattle Seahawks to win and cover the spread as favorites is our full game side pick. The late game on Saturday also sets up an interesting conversation about the total, which sits just below those key numbers of 46 and 47. Generally, that sort of placement says that the market and its bettors see a decent chance of a higher scoring game, but not so much that it should be flirting with 50 points. Here, with this particular National Football Conference matchup, there is plenty of reason to believe the score could land well below those marks. Seattle's defense had a clear edge in their last battle, and that one was only 2 weeks ago. They were swarming and suffocating for most of the night. San Francisco only reached the red zone once and did not score a touchdown. Purdy, who usually shows sneaky elusiveness and a good feel for the pocket, took 3 sacks, absorbed 3 more hits, and finished with a 22.8 QBR. He also threw an interception, and that is not a one-off issue this season. In 2025, he has 12 interceptions in 10 games, matching the 12 he threw across 15 starts in 2024. That is a worrying trend when you are walking into a game that already projects as rugged. The Seahawks also limited the 49ers to just 53 rushing yards in that matchup, which is almost shocking when you consider how much the head coach emphasizes the run game as the foundation of the offense. This season, the 49ers sit 30th in yards per rush at 3.7, so it is hard to argue that Seattle is going to suddenly struggle to contain them on the ground. If the run game is once again bottled up, the weight of the offense will fall entirely on Purdy. He has earned a certain level of trust, but this is not a friendly setup. There is no George Kittle, which removes a major piece of their passing structure and their protection. You add a noisy Seattle crowd and the fact that Purdy is now facing what ranks as the second best defense in the league by advanced expected points added metrics, and the outlook gets pretty grim for an explosive offensive showing. In simple terms, based on how these teams have played all season, it would probably take a near-perfect game plan and an exceptional performance from San Francisco's role players for them to get to 20 points or more. On the other side of the ball, the 49ers defense put in another strong effort against Seattle 2 weeks ago, doing just enough to keep that game from getting out of hand. Given their injuries and the many flaws they have shown this season, including a ranking of 24th in total defensive expected points added, it is hard to fully trust that level of play to continue indefinitely. What you can trust is that the defensive head coach knows how to squeeze the most out of his personnel, regardless of pedigree, which often leads to scrappy, lower-scoring contests. Both teams have leaned toward lower totals recently. Together, they are 5-1 to the under across their last 6 combined games, and they managed only 16 total points in that recent meeting earlier this month. Both regular season matchups between these two teams failed to reach 30 combined points, including that most recent game when Seattle went into San Francisco and won 13-3. With the 49ers losing another key playmaker in Kittle and facing the Seahawks defense that has held 5 of its last 6 opponents to 16 points or fewer, it becomes easier to imagine another grind. Seattle is perfectly comfortable playing in that kind of slow, low-scoring script. Just look back at Week 18. The Seahawks were happy to run 39 times, control the ball for nearly 38 minutes, and limit San Francisco to 9 first downs and 173 total yards. That sort of keep-away style shortens the game and drains possessions. The Niners' defense also showed well in Philadelphia in the wild card round, cutting off the Eagles' attempts at explosive plays. They are a more passive unit that does not bring heavy pressure very often and prefers to keep everything in front of them. That approach can be frustrating for opponents, but it also tends to produce longer drives with more snaps and more time burned. San Francisco's last game finished 23-19, and even with 291 total passing yards on their side, the 49ers still gave away drives with those 2 interceptions. Seattle's defense, with its 47 sacks and 18 interceptions, gives you plenty of reasons to lean toward a lower total, since sacks and takeaways are classic drive killers. You can reasonably expect a better offensive showing from Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers than what we saw in Week 18 because it is hard to be that flat twice in a row. Even so, getting over 46 points in this environment feels like a big ask at Lumen Field, especially without Kittle's presence as a run blocker and as a reliable pass catcher on important downs. When you stack all of these factors together, from the defensive matchups to the recent scoring history, it points toward a game that sits closer to 40 points than 45. As our first pick for this matchup, under the projected total is our full game total pick. That's all for now, so if you have any other games you would like reviewed, then leave a comment down below with the game you would like analyzed, subscribe to our channel, leave a like on this video, and we'll get to it as soon as we possibly can. We would also love to hear your opinion on the picks presented to you in this video, whether you agree or disagree with them, so leave a comment down below and do let us know.